Well, hello there, you perfectly lovely little muggles. My name is Sarah, and I'm reading from Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone by J.K. Rowling. I'm on to the third instalment of Chapter 5, Diagon Alley. At first, they just hurtled through a maze of twisting passages. Harry tried to remember left, right, left, middle, fork, right, left. Oh, it's impossible. The rattling cart seemed to know its own way because Griphook wasn't steering. Harry's eyes stung as the cold air rushed past them, but he kept them wide open. Once he thought he saw a burst of fire at the end of a passage and twisted around to see if it was a dragon, but too late. They plunged even deeper, passing an underground lake and huge stalactites and stalagmites which grew from the ceiling and the floor. "I never know," Harry called to Hagrid over the noise of the cart. "What's the difference between a stalagmite and a stalactite?" "Stalagmite's got an M in it," said Hagrid. "Don't ask me questions just now. I think I'm going to be sick." He did look very green, and when the cart stopped at last beside a small door in the passage wall, Hagrid got out and had to lean against the wall to stop his knees from trembling. Griphook unlocked the door. A lot of green smoke came billowing out, and as it cleared, Harry gasped. Inside were mounds of gold coins, columns of silver, heaps of little brown nuts. "All yours," smelled Hagrid. "All Harry's?" It was incredible. The Dursleys couldn't have known about this, or they've had it from him faster than blinking. How often had they complained how much Harry cost them to keep? All the time there had been a small fortune belonging to him buried deep under London. Hagrid helped Harry pile some of it into a bag. "The gold ones are galleons," he explained. 17 silver sickles to a galleon, 29 nuts to a sickle. It's easy enough. Right, that should be enough for a couple of terms. We'll keep the rest safe for you." He turned to Griphook. "Vault 713 now, please. And can we go more slowly?" "One speed only," said Griphook. They were going even deeper now and gathering speed. The air became colder and colder as they hurtled around the tight corner. They went rattling over an underground ravine, and Harry leant over the side to try and see what was down in the dark bottom, but Hagrid groaned and pulled him back by the scruff of his neck. Vault 713 had no keyhole. "Stand back," said Griphook importantly. He stroked the door gently with one of his long fingers, and it simply melted away. "If anyone but a Gringotts goblin tried that, they'd be sucked through the door and trapped in there," said Griphook. "How often do you check to see if anybody's inside?" said Harry. "About once every 10 years, said Griphook with a rather nasty grin. Something really extraordinary had to be inside this top security vault. Harry was sure, so he leant forward eagerly, expecting to see fabulous jewels at the very least. But at first he thought it was empty. Then he noticed a grubby little package wrapped up in brown paper lying on the floor. Hagrid picked it up, tucked it up deep inside his coat. Harry longed to know what it was, but he knew better than to ask. "Come on, let's get in this infernal cart and don't talk to me on the way back. It's best if I keep my mouth shut," said Hagrid. One wild cart ride later, and they stood blinking in the sunlight outside Gringotts. Harry didn't know where to run first now that he had all those bags full of money. He didn't have to know how many Gringotts there was to a pound to know that he was holding more money than he'd had in his whole life, more money than even Dudley had ever had. "Might as well get your uniform," said Hagrid, nodding towards Madame Malkin's robes for all occasions. Listen, Harry, would you mind if I slipped off for a pick-me-up in the leaky cauldron? I hate them Gringotts carts." He still did look a bit sick, so Harry entered Madame Malkin's shop all alone, feeling quite nervous. Madame Malkin was a squat, smiling witch dressed all in mauve. "Hogwarts, dear," she said, when Harry started to speak. "Got the lot here. Another young man being fitted up just now, in fact." In the back of the shop, a boy with a pale, pointed face was standing on a footstool, while a second witch pinned up his long black robes. Madame Malkin stood Harry on a stool next to him, slipped a long robe over his head and began to pin it up to the right length. "Hello," said the boy. "Hogwarts too?" "Yes," said Harry. "My father's next door buying my books and my mother's up the street looking at wands," said the boy. He had a bored, drawling voice. "Then I'm going to drag them off to look at racing brooms. I don't see why first years can't have their own. I think I'll bully my father into getting me one, and I'll smuggle it in somehow." Harry was strongly reminded of Dudley. "Have you got your own broom?" the boy went on. "No," said Harry. "Play Quidditch at all?" "No," said Harry again, wondering what on earth Quidditch could be. "I do. Father says it's a crime if I'm not picked to play for my house. And I must say, I agree. Know what house you'll be in yet?" "No," said Harry, feeling more stupid by the minute. "Well, no one really knows until they get there, do they? But I know I'll be in Slytherin. All our family have been. Imagine being in Hufflepuff. I think I'd leave, wouldn't you?" Said Harry, wishing he could say something a bit more interesting. "I say, look at that man," said the boy suddenly, nodding towards the front window. Hagrid was standing there, grinning at Harry and pointing at two big, large ice creams to show that he couldn't come in. "Oh, that's Hagrid," said Harry, pleased to know something that the boy didn't. "He works at Hogwarts." "Oh," said the boy. "I've heard of him. He's sort of a servant, isn't he?" "He's the gamekeeper," said Harry. He was liking the boy less and less every second. "Yeah, exactly. I heard he's sort of a savage. Lives in a hut in the school grounds, and every now and then he gets drunk, tries to do magic and is upsetting Farty's bed." "I think he's brilliant," said Harry coldly. "Do you?" said the boy with a slight sneer. "Why is he with you? Where are your parents?" "They're dead," said Harry shortly. He didn't feel much like going into the matter with this boy. "Oh, sorry," said the other, not sounding sorry at all. "But they were our kind, weren't they?" They were a witch and a wizard, if that's what you mean." "I really don't think they should let the other sort in, do you? They're just not the same. They've never been brought up to know our ways. Some of them have never even heard of Hogwarts until they get the letter. Imagine. I think they should keep it in the old wizarding families. What's your surname, anyway?" But before Harry could answer, Madame Malkin said, "That's you done, my dear." And Harry, not sorry for an excuse to stop talking to the boy, hopped down from the footstool. "Well, see you at Hogwarts, I suppose," said the drawling boy. Harry was rather quiet as he ate the ice cream that Hagrid had bought him, chocolate and raspberry with chopped nuts. "What's up?" said Hagrid. "Nothing," Harry lied. They stopped to buy parchment and quills, and Harry cheered up a bit when he found a bottle of ink that changed colour as you wrote. When they'd left the shop, he said, "Hagrid, what's Quidditch?" "Oh, blimey, Harry, I keep forgetting how little you know. Not knowing about Quidditch." "Oh, don't make me feel worse," said Harry. He told Hagrid all about the pale boy and Madame Malkin's. And he said that people from Muggle families shouldn't even be allowed in. "You're not from a Muggle family. If he'd have known who you were, he's grown up knowing your name if his parents are wizarding folk. You saw him in the Leaky Cauldron. Anyway, what does he know about it? Some of the best I ever saw were the only ones with magic in them in a long line of Muggles. Look at your mum. Look at what she had for a sister." So what is Quidditch?" "It's a sport. Wizard sport. It's like football in the Muggle world. Everyone follows Quidditch. Played up in the air on broomsticks, and there's 4 balls. Sort of hard to explain the rules." "And what are Slytherin and Hufflepuff?" "Schoolhouses. There's 4. Everyone says Hufflepuff are a lot of duffers, but I'm in Hufflepuff," said Harry gloomily. "Better Hufflepuff than Slytherin," said Hagrid darkly. "There is not a single witch or wizard who went bad who wasn't in Slytherin. You know who was one. You know who? Was it Hogwarts?" Years and years ago, said Hagrid. They brought Harry's schoolbooks in a shop called Flourish and Blots, where the shelves were stacked to the ceiling with books as large as paving stones, bound in leather. Books the size of postage stamps, covered in silk. Books full of peculiar symbols, and a few books with nothing in them at all. Even Dudley, who never read anything, would have been wild to get his hands on some of these. Hagrid almost had to drag Harry away from the curses and counter-curses, bewitch your friends and befuddle your enemies with the latest revenges, hair loss, jelly legs, tongue-tying, and much, much more, by Professor Vindicus Viridian. I was trying to find out how to curse Dudley. I'm not saying that that's not a good idea, but you're not to use your magic in the Muggle world, except in very special circumstances, said Hagrid. And anyway, you couldn't work any of them curses yet. You'd need a lot more study before you get to that level. Hagrid wouldn't let Harry buy a solid gold cauldron either. It says pewter on the list. But they got a nice set of scales for weighing potions, ingredients, and a collapsible brass telescope. Then they visited the apothecary's, which was fascinating enough to make up for its horrible smell. A mixture of bad eggs and rotten cabbages. Barrels of slimy stuff stood on the floor. Jars of herbs, dried roots and bright powders lined the walls. Bundles of feathers, strings of fangs, and snarled claws hung from the ceiling. While Hagrid asked the man behind the counter for a supply of some basic potion ingredients for Harry, Harry himself examined silver unicorn horns at 21 galleons each, and minuscule, glittery black beetle eyes, 5 nuts a scoop. Outside the apothecary's, Hagrid checked Harry's list again. Just your wand left. Oh, yeah, and I still haven't got you a birthday present. Harry felt himself go red. You don't have to. I know I don't have to. Tell you what, I'll get your animal. Not a toad, because toads went out of fashion years ago. You'd be laughed at. And I don't like cats. They make me sneeze. I'll get you an owl. Oh, the kids want owls. They're dead useful. Carry a post and everything. 20 minutes later, they'd left Ailop's Owl Emporium, which had been dark and full of rustling and flickering, jewel-bright eyes. Harry now carried a large cage, which held a beautiful snowy owl, fast asleep, with her head under her wing, and he couldn't stop stammering his thanks, sounding just like Professor Quirrell. Don't mention it, said Hagrid gruffly. Don't expect you've had a lot of presents from them Dursleys. Just Ollivanders left now, the only place for wands. Ollivanders. And you've got to have the best wand. I'm going to carry on reading, and I'm going to post all of this chapter up at once. So, if you're a very, very good little muggle, you should go and clean your teeth and wash your hands and then snuggle in. Give yourself a great big huge cuddly snuggle. And I will see you tomorrow. However, if you want to stay up a little bit later, I'm going to carry on reading the next part of the chapter.